Okay, so let's talk the Marvels. The film was exactly as advertised. It was basically the feminist wet dream that everybody was fearful of. And it is unapologetic about it. In fact, it leans into it in a way that is very disgusting. And again, I'm not worried about the fact that there's female superheroes in it. In fact, there are 3 of them. And by the time we get to the end, we have, well, the new Avengers. That's a real thing. There were too many conveniences, too many things, a lot of things that weren't connected. And if you've heard that before, it's because it's true. Anyway, let's talk about the Marvels. Here we go. All right, so I made it home from the theater to the home studio. And I've thought about it for a while, a couple of hours. I've let it kind of sink in, the experience that I had today at the theater, watching the Marvels. And I have to say, and I will acknowledge, that the film is not made for me. It's not made for men at all. In fact, it's not made for men or women. It's made for 10 to 15-year-old girls. Apparently, that's Marvel's new target audience. And they served that audience pretty well. A lot of things happened. None of them had a whole lot of, well, impact on what we saw in the movie. There was an overly long, but somewhat interesting series of events that let them figure out that they were trading places through, well, the use of their powers, which you would have already learned if you just watched the trailer. And what the trailer did so very effectively was show you that that was the way the mechanic worked. But instead, that took many, many minutes of screen time to convey the point. At times, it was amusing, but nobody laughed. In a theater of, well, 200 plus seats, there were only 10 to 12 seats filled. I think it was 10 to start with, and 12 by the time we were about 2 to 3 minutes into the film. That's not a lot of people. That's 5% of the theater capacity. So it really isn't resonating with people. Mind you, I saw this on Veterans Day, Saturday, today, the day that I'm recording this. And yet, at a time in the middle of the day when everybody would be at a theater, nobody was. And it turns out it wasn't just at my theater. The internet, across the internet, has examples of people doing screenshots and showing them on the various social platforms, including Twitter. Well, I guess that's X now, but it doesn't really matter. The same thing. And yeah, nobody was there. And the reason nobody was there is because of a steadily declining product that doesn't appeal to anybody. Certainly didn't appeal to me. As far as the story goes, there was a little story. And in order to keep up with some of it, you had to have done a ton of homework. And I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of other commentators in this space. And they're right. You really would have had to do a bunch of homework on Disney Plus and, maybe caught a comic book or 2. You would have had to have watched The Ridiculousness with Nick Fury plus Miss Marvel in order to have any context for what was going on. And I'll be fair, the CGI wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. And yes, this film is directed to people who enjoy cats, and that's fine. It is enjoyable, maybe to a distinct age range of females. Again, I think 10 to 15. So you have 10 to 15-year-old girls that like cats. That's Marvel's audience. To the film itself, you had 3 actresses that really did try to do a decent job. Discount, I don't know, Thanos, let's say. I think some people are calling this other villain that, was really not a threat. And all of a sudden, Captain Marvel remembered she was overpowered. So she started using them. The self-sacrificing character in this film is, of course, Monica Rambeau, played by Teyonah Parris. And she did as well with that role as she's ever done, which is, well, middling. The thing that saved the film, and I think you probably heard this as well, is Kamala Khan, played by Iman Vellani. She is a joy to watch because she's actually having fun. She's enjoying this role and playing this character. And she's incredibly invested in what she's doing. I'm not sure that she has a massive acting career in her future, but for this particular character, she nailed it. Again, returning to the story, there was one. It just really wasn't there. And a lot of people have described the film as a series of events that are not really all that well connected and lead to, well, what we got, which is some disappointment. As I mentioned before, audience reaction was pretty tepid, weak, non-existent, pick your adjective. But there was some audible groans at times. There wasn't any belly laughs. There certainly wasn't any laughter in the theater at all, even at moments that were supposed to be comedic. There also wasn't the standing applause or sitting applause that a lot of the early Marvel films got, because those films actually catered to an audience that was going to be there. People who were actually invested in comic book movies. And believe it or not, that audience scales to the male side. Disney directed all of this movie at the female side. And of course, all the little distractions, the jangling keys, plus the army of Flurkin kittens that are only there for the most ridiculous reason and really are nothing more than a plot assistance device to get from point A to point B in the middle of a crisis. How convenient that this happened during the course of this film. To be fair, the thing with the most personality was the Flurkin, Goose, who was somewhat entertaining and then a little bit disgusting and then very much overplayed and then overutilized in the form of a zillion kittens. And the film is beat for beat, just like any other modern Marvel's product. And that's what we should start calling this. It's just a product. It's no longer entertainment. It's no longer cinema. It's no longer even good television. It's, by its real definition, as Disney has decided to do with all of its IP, it's content. It's not very good content. If I were rating it on a scale of 1 to 10, and I didn't want you to wait this long for this, it's only about a 4. It might not even be a 4. It probably is more like a 3. And the reason I give it a 4 is probably because of Ms. Marvel, Iman Vellani, who, as I said before, did a great job. It certainly isn't because of anything else in this film. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. Brie Larson has a lot of talent. She's pretty much playing this character fairly flat, but she did show more emotion, and maybe that'll help the audience connect with her this time. She also demonstrated some talents that we already knew she had. She can sing, and she can dance. She has a lot of stage presence, but I don't know that she'll ever be a superstar. You will also come to realize that the sole purpose of this film is to get into play as quickly as possible the Young Avengers, or whatever they're going to call them. The New Avengers, hopefully not the new Warriors, but it's essentially the kids' team. And that's what the whole end of the movie is about. Iman Vellani being Nick Fury to recruit Avengers. She also starts with another female. And if you know the direction that they're going in, you're not surprised. A-Force was really going to attempt to be a thing. I almost said try, but attempt is probably the right way to describe it. And I'm not sure that they were going to be able to pull it off. They certainly didn't use this movie to kick it off, and because it certainly isn't going to land with anybody. And it didn't surprise me one bit that the preview night was $6.5 million and that Friday's earnings were very poor. Saturday is not going to be much better, and this technically is a holiday weekend. We're going to roll into Sunday, and there's going to be some very disappointing numbers. This film could come in below films that were released a couple decades that aren't even associated with this version of the MCU. In fact, it likely will. And I'm sticking with my prediction that this film domestically makes less than $65 million at the box office this weekend. I don't know how it could make more. I should have stuck with my original projection, which was between 43 and 48. And I think that's probably close. It's probably going to get a more action on Sunday, but we'll see. One thing's for certain, if Nia DaCosta had anything to do with the actual direction of this film, she should never work in genre entertainment again. She should never work in superhero films, fantasy films, anything. She has no business there. She doesn't understand it, and she can't tell the story. And I'll say once more, there are no heroic men in this film. None. And it reeks of executive producer Victoria Alonso. And if this was the reason that she got fired, it makes a lot of sense. Also explains why they had to do so many reshoots on this film. On a final note, on my 5-star scale, getting back to the ratings, this thing doesn't even get to the midpoint. It rocks a 2. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. It should be a 1.5. Again, I told you the reason why I'm not knocking it down a half a star. But it should be a 1.5 to be fair. At the end of the day, this movie was looking for another modern audience that doesn't exist, unless the modern audience is 10 to 15-year-old girls who like cats, or future cat ladies. Other commentators have gone out of their way to give you all of the spoilers, which, again, Mr. H was 100% right about from the H-cast, and I wasn't surprised about anything. All the leaks were true, even the mid-credit scene, which was disappointing and, well, pretty terrible CGI. Disney has attempted to add an audience, and they failed. The audience that they were looking for doesn't exist, and the audience that they had, that they took for granted would be there forever, is long gone now, and I don't think they're coming back. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I could have gone harder in the paint on this film and broken it down for you scene by scene and told you that none of it made any sense. A lot of it is inconsistent. And, well, there should have been many times that Miss Marvel died and didn't, based on their own continuity. It doesn't. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below, because it would really help to hear what you thought of this movie if you saw it, or if you're not going to see this movie because of, well, one of the commentators like me. Because as always, I see movies, so you don't have to. On that note, check out the new merchandise over on beachpunk.us, because we've got a lot of new product out there, including some amazing water bottles and some incredible hats. And I'll be, well, sharing those more throughout the next several videos, so keep an eye out. After all, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya!